which is a problem. And yeah, hey.
Okay, we're live. Holy smokes. Hello, everybody. This is the first time this has ever worked right when we're supposed to go live. Welcome to Chris Sells His Soul. I am your host, Chris Bogue, and this is my show where every week I sit down on LinkedIn Live and talk with cool people who are doing cool things in business. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my guest today, and that's Chris Van Praag from Vidyard. Chris, introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. This is nice, isn't it? So I'm Chris. I'm an account executive at Vidyard. We're here randomly to talk about movies on LinkedIn, which is great. So I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about movies and stuff, and movies and business and personal branding and all that kind of good stuff.
Excellent. Well, we are going to have lots to talk about today. Before we begin with the conversation, Chris, where can we find you if the audience wants to go watch videos from you? Where do we find you on social media?
Yeah, so you'll find me here on LinkedIn. I'm often on LinkedIn in various conversations. So please do connect with me and ask me any questions if we don't get through questions and stuff on here. I'm also on TikTok, so some of my not appropriate for LinkedIn content goes on TikTok. So I'm also on TikTok, so you can find me on @VP of Sales on TikTok. And if you're not on TikTok, you need to get on TikTok because it's fun.
Excellent. So I am posting some links here. I'm putting your link in the chat. I'm putting my link in the chat. We are both creators. The audience can follow us both if they want bearded, silly but affable men politely giving sales advice.
That's it. And otherwise, if you're in the UK, you could be watching I'm a Celebrity or MasterChef. So the people from the UK that are here, I appreciate you because there's probably better stuff that you could be doing, but you're here. So I'm very, very pleased.
Wonderful. Well, I am so glad you're here. Chris is joining us from the UK, and I've been wanting to have a conversation with him for a long time because if anybody's never seen Chris's videos, he makes these hilarious videos. He does a lot of stuff on TikTok, and he plays a lot with pop culture. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. But he has this very relatable style. He is a very unassuming, like everyman type character. I like just watching you. You're a very normal seeming person, a very polite seeming man. And it's interesting to watch you throw yourself into all these kind of ridiculous situations. So why don't you just take a couple minutes here to talk about how long you've been making video for business and a little bit about what your style is.
It's a good question. I started making video. I mean, I've always been a video. This is probably where it stems from, right? I've always liked movies and videos and stuff. And when I first started in my job at Babel Quest, which was back right at the beginning of 2020, I started putting out videos. Like we were quite video focused, and I started putting out videos on LinkedIn. I wanted to kind of increase awareness and stuff, and I started putting out these like thought leadery type things where I'd like speak to the camera and talk all about. And it just wasn't me. I was just trying to be a person that I thought you're supposed to be on LinkedIn, and I never got the memo about LinkedIn as like a professional network and all that sort of stuff. So like, I just was kind of doing what I thought, like chatting about business and talking about this serious stuff. And it just wasn't really me. And then I think I can't remember what the first one that I did was, but I just started being a bit more me, right? And I think I did like a Love Actually thing, which would be about a year ago now, where I just basically took that famous scene from the movie where he's got the cards at the door, and I just used some very basic video editing.
I was about to do that. I probably shouldn't do that then because you already did that. I was about
to do that. It's such a meme, right? Like you just got to do it. It's like so easy to do. I was actually going to do it again, so I might do it again. So who knows? We might see that everywhere on everyone's feed. But I did that, and it was super popular, and people seemed to enjoy it. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Like people on LinkedIn like enjoy sort of stupid stuff. And then that kind of sort of opened the floodgates, really. And I was like, I'm just going to see how far I can push this and how stupid I can get. And it turns out that the stupider it got and the weirder I went, the more people seem to enjoy it, really. So now it's just become like a thing that I do. But what's really cool is I work in sales, right? So I am by default, people dislike me before you've met me because I work in sales. That's fine. I get that's my bed. I will lie in it.
Same.
So when say yeah, so that's it. So if you can project personality, and that's me, right? Like you are, you kind of got me to a T, right? I'm not a salesy person. I'm a pretty affable person. I'm pretty chilled out. I enjoy sales because I like solving problems. And if I can get my personality across, that's that kind of initial part done. People are like, oh, this guy's all right. Like he's not here just to kind of take money from us. He seems like and that's really helped me. So open up conversations on LinkedIn, to really related to what I was selling. Obviously now I sell video, which is great. It really ties in with my superpowers, as it were. So that's helped me in that way. So I've just kind of been me, really. So yeah, I've just sort of found a way of sort of folding it into my normal daily thing, and I just try and release videos as often as I can now, really.
Yes, that is. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit. This conversation is called 60 Seconds of Fame. And it's called that because there's a statement attributed to Andy Warhol in 1968, where he supposedly predicted that in the future, everybody is going to get 15 minutes of fame. And I think about that statement. I go, one, we get way the hell longer than that now. There are people, if you're in sales, you are on Zoom all the live long day. The lights are on, the cameras are rolling. You're talking to an audience for hours. But really, you only need 60 seconds. Really, if you just show up as the most entertaining version of yourself for a minute, that's really all you need. And yeah, I wanted to get a little further into your style today because the first one that I really loved of yours, I think might have been the Scream one where you were in Scream. And yeah, I'm fascinated by this idea. I have this theory that the reason why people love movies and the reason why people love live entertainment and television is because they imagine themselves up there. We imagine ourselves stepping into these roles and having all this fun and telling these stories. And yeah, I'm realizing I'm learning all this stuff about social selling. And they're like, oh, you got to tell the story. You got to be a storyteller. And people are like, well, my grandfather, he was a fisherman and my grandmother, she worked in the telephone. And it's like, well, actually people just tell themselves the same stories over and over again, and there is power in nostalgia. There is power to show up telling the story that they're already familiar with. And, the holidays are approaching, right? So it's like, people don't want to go out. Nobody goes out and they're like, oh, I got to see 100 new Christmas movies this year that I've never seen before. They want to watch the movies they already love. And when it gets to their favorite part, they go, everybody shut up. This is the best part of the movie. And yeah, you're doing this thing now where you're jumping into movies on TikTok and it is highly entertaining. So can you tell me a little bit about how do you decide which clips to do? How do you figure out the bits? How much preparation goes into them? And what's your process for actually making stuff like that?
Yeah. So I guess for people, anyone who hasn't seen it yet, so recently I've been doing that, right, and it's kind of evolved. So I started folding in movies, and because I like movies, and I was like, I can just think of stuff. Like I think of famous movie scenes. I think the first one I did was that I think that Liam Neeson one, right? That's that famous content that Liam. And you might have done. Did you do a Liam Neeson Taken one?
I've seen it around on video. I may have made a meme. I've made memes about that before, but I've never done one on video. But I should.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know where it came from, but I was like, okay. I mean, he's saying perfect content. He's I don't know who you are, and HubSpot. I was selling HubSpot at the time, and HubSpot's all about it kind of gathers data and stuff, and it enables it to be easier for you to be able to outreach to some people that all that kind of stuff. So I was like, this is cool. I can just fold in me on the other end of this phone call, having a conversation with Liam Neeson, explaining how HubSpot works. And so I did that, and then I sort of decided to go a bit extra, and I did one. I had a conversation with Maximus Decimus Meridius about him I can't remember all the details, but it was his name, and he was giving the classic scene where he's like, husband to a fathered son, and someone's trying to take down notes, and it was about how HubSpot can automatically just pull the data in from somebody without you having to write down and put it all in manually and all that kind of stuff. And then now I've started to go a bit super extra. So I've bought a green screen, and I've started filming myself and then cutting myself into the actual shot and editing out the people they're talking to. And so I did one with Ryan Gosling recently. I've done Scream, as you mentioned. I did one where I was like Tony Montana's sales manager from Scarface. I don't really know where they come from, to be honest. I'm often just out walking my dog, and sometimes I'll go around, I'll search like classic movie scenes and things. Often they just sort of come to me. And then I think, I'd like to work that into a thing. And I guess as a process, I just write down what they're saying, and then I just find stuff to say that works with what they're saying. And sometimes it doesn't work, and I have to cut bits out and jumble bits around and stuff. And then it comes, I hack it together. I'm by no means a video editing mastermind.
Well, no, but I'm interested in the writing, right? This is one thing that I find kind of separates what I do from a lot of the people out there who are teaching how to be on video. Because I'm a writer first and foremost, and I'm also a coach. I run my own business. For anybody in the audience who's unfamiliar, I run my own business. So I coach individuals and I coach sales teams how to sell on video. And I always was writing shows for ensembles. I'm mostly a one-man show right now, but I'm used to writing for cast members, and you have a bunch of different types of actors. And all my scripts always went through multiple revisions, right? Because anything on stage, that's probably the third or fourth revision you got. And I always loved the final revision before I gave the script to the cast, because I got to look around and be like, oh, okay, well, this guy, we can amp this up a little bit, and I can kind of play to their strengths. So I am now, my stuff feels off the cuff, but I am rather scripted. And especially if it's something with a lot of jump cuts, my scripts are written in bullet points, and each location has the different lines. So like, when you say you're writing this out, is this kind of just like on a piece of paper, or do you like scale of 1 to 10? How scripted are these movie back and forth scenes you're doing?
Yeah, pretty scripted. Mostly because I can, because quite often it's as you say, it's cutting between different bits. So I've done 2 different types. One where I've been like editing myself into stuff. Mm-hmm. The ones that are easiest to edit are the ones where I am on a conversation with somebody, because I haven't got to do that. I'm literally like, so the Tony Montana one, the Scream one were phone calls, and the Taken one were all phone calls, right? So I could just cut the bit where they're doing, and me saying a line, then they're saying a line, me saying a line. So I can just either look at the go, I'm going to say that, okay, and then I'll look into the middle distance, or try, whatever it might be. The harder ones are the ones where I'm trying to speak to someone. So like the Ryan Gosling thing, right? Because I've got a green screen, I've got a rough idea of like where his eyes are, and I've got to try and like look at the angle of where his eyes are, and then say the line. So I'll like do the thing, and sometimes I film it, and I'm like, oh, it just looks like I'm like looking into dead space, and sometimes I'm like, it's fine, I'll do it, or I'll use the footage and hope no one notices.
I got a trick for that. So you pick a focal point somewhere out in the room. And like, so I did a thing, and I wanted to actually talk with you about this, because I do a lot of pop culture stuff here and there. It's weird because I am writing a book, and I am inventing my whole sales process, my whole video process. I've got like this whole way that I do it. And a lot of my best business comes from, if I pull off a really good pop culture parody, in come the inbounds, and yeah, there's benefit to a story that the audience already knows. And if you're trying to get started on making content, it helps to already have the blueprint, like you said, the Taken dialogue. I don't know who you are, but I have a very special set of skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. That's such an iconic line that if you do that, or if there's anything, take, so like I did a Rocky parody once, and it's like, if you get 3 things from Rocky, there are 100 iconic moments in that movie. If you give the audience 3, they are with you, and I reposted today on my profile one of the first things I did when I started making video was I did Sell Me This Pen, from The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, it's great.
And I am not a sell me this pen kind of sales guy, right? I'm not like the boiler room type, really high pressure. I do not like that. If someone shoved a pen in my face and was like, sell this to me, I'd be like, you asshole, no. But it's such a good scene. It's such a good scene. And I'm like, you know what? That was an entertaining movie, and I am selling to sales VPs, and I'm selling to CEOs and entrepreneurs, and they've all seen that damn movie. And how would I solve that puzzle? You know, how would I do that? And I ripped the first couple lines directly from the movie. And it's me, and I'm talking to myself. I'm playing my boss, and I'm also playing me. And, you know, it's just like, sell me this fucking pen. You think you could sell anything? Show me how it's done. And I try to sell it the way they do it in the movie, and it doesn't work. And again, it's that idea of like, the audience sees it. They already like the movie. They already recognize the line. They're like, oh, he's going to try to get him right on the thing. And then something changes. And they're like, okay, let's see where he's going with this one. And I was taught in improv, you always have two choices on how you can play with any gift in a scene. You can either lean into it, or you can lean away from it. And as long as you commit, either choice is fine. And it's like, if you take a couple things from pop culture and you're like, I'm going to commit faithfully to these 4 things, then this other one, I'm just going to break the rule. And it's just going to be me like sitting there eating chips and like, whatever. You throw just a couple of those hallmarks in and people love it. And that's why I loved your Scream one too. It's for people who didn't see it. It's Drew Barrymore, her character in the beginning that gets killed famously right away. And, you know, she gets the call, and usually it's the Scream guy going, what's your favorite scary movie? And he's terrorizing her. But it's Chris being very Geico Gecko friendly as like a sales guy trying to get information from her. And she's screaming, and it works because everyone knows and loves that scene. And you released it right before Halloween. So of course we're all going to watch it. And do you have any tricks up your sleeve that you maybe want to tease out? You don't have to tell anything here, but do you have anything in the works coming up for the holiday season that we might want to keep an eye out for?
It's a good. I've been racking my brains for the longest time. I know I've got to do a Christmas one, so I probably will do a Love Actually one again because it's just so easy to do. Mm-hmm. And it's just great. It's just a meme that just works. I do want to try and do like a green screen. I don't know where I'm going to find the time. I don't know. I'd like to do Elf. I've done Die Hard, but I did Die Hard 3, and I'd like to do Die Hard 1. There's a couple of phone calls in Die Hard 1. I can't quite work a way into it, but so Die Hard possibly. Whether that's a Christmas movie is the debate, right?
Oh, it's a Christmas movie. It's a Christmas movie, all right. Anybody out there? I was thinking about doing a Die Hard one too. Die Hard is another one where it's a great everyman, you know. And John McClane, it is this movie where you feel like you really identify with him. He is a strange man in a strange land. He is stuck in a building fighting all these people by himself, and you are watching him figure out the problem. And a little background on me, I used to do a ton of theater and stuff. And when I was growing up, I was always really down on myself because I was always cast in really boring parts. You know, I was never like my boss character from the Wolf of Wall Street thing. And he's just someone who just yells cop cliches, right? He just screams like, you know, you're a loose cannon and I'll have your badge for this. And I would never, ever, ever get cast in that role in a play. You know, they would never cast me as the big, loud, angry, demeaning boss. But I'm like, well, I'm writing this thing and I think that's funny and I'm just going to do it. You know, and that wasn't even originally my boss character. Originally, there was a draft of that script where instead of having my boss that's like screaming at me, he's like a stoner. He's like a Mark Zuckerberg, like hoodie wearing guy. And he doesn't remember which company this is. He doesn't remember who I am or what I do. And, you know, I just like, I fell in love with like, again, it's the Hollywood cliches. It's like, I love those cop cliches. And it's funny when you do them. It's funny when you yell them at people. I used to have a bit, my comedy group, when I used to do comedy before this, we had a bit about an office worker named Spitterman. And a Spider-Man, but like older and not doing well at his job. And yeah, it was like anytime the boss would just be like, Spitterman, get the hell into my office. Like, it didn't matter what he's going to do. It's just funny, you know?
That's good.
And yeah, I've done a lot, like even just looking at my like influences. I'm curious about your influences. Mine are all over the place, like Bugs Bunny and The Simpsons and The Kids in the Hall and Rick and Morty, and I'm all over the place. Anytime I'm talking to a creative person, I want to know, what are your influences? Like growing up, what was the kind of stuff that you watched and thought about, like, oh, I wish I could make funny stuff like that or cool stuff like that?
Yeah, quite random. I think probably I spent a lot of my time watching like early 90s action movies. So I like all of the old Arnie films. I'd like to do a couple of those. That would be like get some. I had a good Arnie Jingle All the Way one at one point that I was going to do. That's Christmas. I could resurface that
one.
But the old like Commando, Total Recall, Red Heat, like those ones. Obviously things like Die Hard, like Jurassic Park. I remember going to see on my birthday, and I'd already bought I already had the T-shirt and I had the rug and the curtains and the duvets, the whole thing. And Jurassic Park is still, I've got a Jurassic Park tattoo. It's like still like my number one favorite film. Terminator 2. But I'm a big it's interesting because I like just consuming content. So I've got favorite films, and if I've seen Nikki in the comments has not seen Die Hard, which is a travesty. You do need to watch it, especially at Christmas time. But like if Die Hard's on, I'll be like, oh cool, I'm watching the rest of this. But I very rarely will sit down and go, I'm going to watch Terminator 2 again, even though it's probably my favorite film of all time. I rarely put it. I wouldn't put it on. I'll find something new that I should have seen that I haven't seen, and just consume content. And that's quite good from the clips idea, because I'll watch something and be like, oh, I'm going to do that. Like I watched, and now I'm constantly thinking of like creative ideas when I watch new movies. I watched for the first time. I watched You've Got Mail the other day for the first time. And I'm not a big romantic comedies person generally, but the reason I watched it was because I sell video. So I sell a video platform, and one of the big use cases of it is sending one-to-one prospecting videos via video. Helps with, this is my pitch, helps with open rates and book more meetings, all that kind of stuff. But what I'm looking for at the moment for content is clips where people are looking at screens, because my plan is I'm going to just cut in me doing a prospecting video to Meg Ryan. And in fact, I did when I joined Vidyard, I did like a job announcement video, and I just found a load of clips of people watching TV. So there's like clips from like Poltergeist with a little girl sat in front of the TV, when it comes out and grabs her and stuff. Jurassic Park and Samuel L. Jackson's on the thing. So like loads and loads of clips just chopped together. And it was me telling all these people, hey, by the way, I've joined Vidyard. So now I'm looking for like opportunities to do that. So I'm consuming content with a view of being like, oh, I could do that one. Oh, I could do that one.
Yeah, that is so cool. And that is why I tell people to just steal from pop culture. There are so many pop culture beloved institutions that just steal from other things. Like I mentioned, Bugs Bunny, that was just like parodying the stuff that was out there at the time. And I always say that like I got a masterclass in comedy by just watching The Simpsons, watching the classic Simpsons. And that, now that I'm an adult nerd, I listen to like podcasts and I listen to like roundtable discussions because I'm fascinated by how people create funny stuff as a group. I think I'm a very collaborative person, and my job is all about collaborating with other people and just like learning about these fantastically smart people. But again, you go back and you watch it and you're like, oh, this is, this is the Barber of Seville. This is some other story that you just pick up the structure. South Park did it. They were, they're always parodying stuff. Community, Rick and Morty, the Goldbergs. it's like, you know, what you only have to be faithful to a couple things, and it really kind of teaches you about what you're about. And I actually have, so this is an interesting question I want to explore with you. I want to move to talking a little bit more about personal brand, because you are a person who like, so when I think of you, I think of the videos, right? No offense to Vidyard. I love Vidyard. I'm a corporate affiliate partner. Get Vidyard, everybody. But I see you as somebody who just like, whether you're at Babel Quest or Vidyard or wherever you're going to go in life, you just being you behind the camera, you are, you know, I mean, maybe you're saying different stuff. You're talking to a different audience. You're selling a different product. But I feel like you are more successfully doing this be a brand and also work for a company thing that a lot of people are trying to figure out how to do. I couldn't figure out how to do that, which is why I launched my own business, because I'm like, I got wild ideas and I don't think I can do them as part of another organization. But yeah, have you ever had, I guess you don't have to name names or name jobs or whatever, but have you ever had pushback where they're like, man, this is really kind of out there stuff, and maybe you're going to get our brand in trouble, so maybe like tone it down?
No, I've been fortunate. I've heard stories about that, you know, but I've never experienced that. I when I first started doing it, when I moved away from the like fake thought leadership stuff that I thought I should be doing, and I moved into this other thing, I did have a word with my boss at the time and said, look, like I want to do this. Is this all right? And I think the first one, he was like, just like run it by me first. And I did it. And he was like, yeah, it's pretty funny. So yeah, no worries. And I think I did another one and asked him. And then I just stopped asking because it was, you know, it was clearly like generating really good, you know, good conversations. And it was, you know, it was helping me in my role. And it certainly wasn't having any impact. In fact, it was benefiting us, because when I was a HubSpot agency, there's so many. So it's quite, how do you choose if you're a customer? So if you're just the names out there, it was quite good. Then when I joined Vidyard, which is a much bigger organization, I asked the question. I said, look, you know, I do all this kind of stuff, but Vidyard I'd already had a bit of a relationship. We were a partner of Vidyard, so I'd already made videos, and I'd already was connected to a lot of people, and a lot of people in the kind of content marketing side, and so I said, like, what should I do? And they were like, we know the stuff you do. Keep doing the stuff that you do. So that's benefited me. I think if I'd moved into a business where they hadn't seen any of it, or maybe it was the kind of that brand, their brand was a little bit more kind of straight-laced, you know, corporate, then it might not have fit. But I think that's why I'm a really good fit at Vidyard, because culturally we fit as well. You know, if you look at any of Vidyard's content, you know, we post a lot on our company page, very, very heavily. And it's great. Like Charlie and the team who do all of that do amazing. You know, they create memes and they use lots of pop culture gifs and stuff. So it ties in really well. So I'm fortunate, but I totally understand the people out there that if their company brand is a little bit more straight laced, if you're out there like making crazy wacky videos or doing TikTok dances and stuff, then it might not tally. But for me, it's never been a problem. So I've just been able to kind of run with it.
Interesting. I was in a comment section in LinkedIn yesterday, and they were talking about how being informal is like the new professionalism. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm all about.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And like,
thank you.
Yeah, my style is very much acknowledging what the convention is and then not following it. You know, it's like, okay, so how's the formal way that everybody hates doing this? Okay, I'm going to do a more fun version of that. And it's interesting for me because I'm trying to build a company brand. And right now the company is mostly just me selling my labor, but I've got big plans for it. And it's like the funny stuff does so much better than everything else. And I was actually reminded of a tip from one of my friends who's now a writer out in LA. But yeah, the thought leadership stuff, sometimes I do have something serious to say and I just don't have a joke planned. And I think my audience appreciates that sometimes I'm just going out there and I'm talking to them straight. Or if I'm working with a company that has a more serious tone, I like to show them that I can do serious stuff. But when it comes to saying something profound, I was always taught it's better to shoot for funny than it is to shoot for profound, because if you shoot for profound and you don't make the mark, people are like, ah, fuck that guy. But sometimes when you shoot for funny, it's accidentally profound. And if you fall a little short on the comedy, they'll be like, you know what? That was amusing, but yeah, that's kind of profound, you know? And it's like, if you're shooting for the comedy, you might get there anyway. And I believe that comedy is, I get into arguments with people sometimes because they're just like, they're always afraid of offending the wrong person. And, you know, I've read a lot of op-eds about like, is comedy over? Is comedy dead? And I'm like, of course it's not dead. Of course it'll never be dead. Of course, ever since there's been jokes, there's been people getting offended by jokes. And comedy exists in the gap between how we're supposed to act and how we actually act. And as long as there's a shared set of standards for how people interact, and that's a given. There's always going to be unwritten rules to who can say what to who and how you're supposed to say this and that. And comedy always comes from a person being like, you know what? Everyone says that I'm supposed to react to the situation this way, but honestly, I just kind of do it this way, you know? And the audience laughs because they're like, you know what? I have that exact same reaction. And there's never going to be consensus on anything. There's always going to be disagreements on like, what is the right way to act? What's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And comedy is always going to exist in that gray area, you know? Yeah. And I think I've seen throughout my life, even now, even with me, you know, I see this kind of volleying back and forth between like, sometimes comedy gets very self-serious and almost turns into like a back to school special. And then it kind of swings back into anarchy. And you get these real anarchic, anything goes kind of periods of just randomness. And then that evens itself out. And they're like, okay, well, then this guy's going to stand up and say something, you know, important now. And then, you know, I feel like it kind of slides back and forth. But whenever people get too sick of one, they just jump to the other. And I can't figure out what's unprofessional anymore, Chris. I honestly... You know, it's like you follow all the rules for how you're supposed to write your cold email and people are like, fuck you, you know?
Right,
and
yeah.
You go do something weird and then they're like, oh, I'll talk to you. Your boss is like, that's a demo on the board. I'm gonna ring the bell. And like, who's to say what's unprofessional anymore?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's interesting because you made a point earlier and like about that, about what people are expecting. And so on LinkedIn, for example, I thought that you were supposed to provide, like you had to provide like thought leadership content. And there's some amazing thought leaders out there. And I you know, that's just not me. And it'll never be me because I don't spend my time listening to thought leadership podcasts and I don't read enough books to learn about that. And I'm not crafting that. And if you want to go down that thought leader route, that's your thing, right? You can't do both. You can't be a thought leader, I don't think, really. I mean, I know there's a few people that are brave enough to try. But I guess, but in your, I think when I say thought leader, I guess it's that kind of visionary. Here is like it's quite serious stuff, and then I think, and then there's the kind of comedy piece. So I think you have to earn the right to do that, right? To do the thought leader stuff. I've decided that that's not my thing. In fact, I updated my profile recently to say like not a thought leader. No, I don't want.
I consider you a thought leader. I do.
Our interpretation of what a thought leader is very different then, because that's not me.
I do have a vision though, and this is what my vision is. I think that the people who can be funny, who can perform well, we are going to win this next iteration of business, right? There was a time where business was very artificial. And, you know, that's another thing that ebbs and flows. There was a time where business was walking up to people and shaking their hand and looking them in the eye. And then there was a time where business was very like segmented and cut off. And especially in the 80s and 90s, it became much more into cubicles and you started separating people from each other. And, this whole moment that we're thrust in right now, I still believe that even the people who are doing video at the top of their game, your Vidyards, you guys have a really powerful product here. And there's some really good coaches out there. And I like to think I'm pretty good too, but we have not even begun to realize what video can do. And I am on a personal mission because I see a lot of people out there who can do the silly guy thing. And it's like, it's very easy for me to teach somebody how to ask effective sales questions, right? The sales questions that work today have pretty much worked since sales began, right? You're asking them open-ended questions about themselves. Comic timing, that is not a thing that most people have. That is a very difficult thing to teach to a person. And that sensitivity to know whether or not you should push the envelope, and anybody who's spent enough time on stage to know, what, I'm going to go out on a limb here, because if I just jump out into it, that audience is going to catch me because this is too fun of an idea for them not to go along with it. And I see so many depressed theater people and so many people that gave up performing so they could be at a quote unquote serious 9-to-5 job. And they're not at the top of their company because they are trying to do the boring way that we used to do it. And I am out here being like, hey, if you actually went out there and had some damn fun, that's what people want right now. And people want to laugh. People want something that isn't soul crushing. And artists can do that. We just somewhere along the line learned that that's not valuable, that, business, quote unquote, is what's important, whatever the hell that means.
Mm. Yeah, it's super interesting. Yeah, I totally agree. I think for me, what it's helped with is, as I said earlier, like it's about personality, and there's been a few times where and so when you were saying the kind of the personal brand stuff, I never kind of went out to be like, I'm going to create a personal brand. I just was like, I'm going to put these things out there, and because people seem to enjoy them, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'm a bit of a sucker for like, general positive feedback. So people were like, this is fun. And I was like, oh, cool. This is brightening people's day and it's good. So I'll just put more out. And I started putting more out. But what's been really fun is that I've then done my normal day job and outreach to somebody and gone, hey, by the way, I'm Chris and I'm selling this. And I think this might be a good solution. And they've gone, oh, like, I've seen your videos. Yeah, they're funny. Yeah, cool. I'll have a chat. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I have a chat because I've broken down that barrier. People are going, yeah, you're a normal person. So you're totally right. Like virtual selling now is a thing, right? But we still want to engage and create personal relationships with people. But you can't, just the fact that you can see each other does not mean that you have then created a relationship with that person. Much like you can't just walk up to somebody and go, do you want to buy my thing? You have to build rapport. But in today's like virtual selling landscape, how do you build rapport on scale, on a mass level, where you do that by maybe by putting yourself out there? And it could be through thought leadership content and people understanding and learning, oh, this guy, he absolutely knows that subject. I want to buy from him because he's clearly the expert. Or it could be, oh, this guy's funny. I'll have a conversation. I'll give him 15 minutes of my time, 30 minutes of my time to find out, what it is, and then we can have the serious business chat.
Well, it's like, as long as people aren't talking out of their ass, I think it's fine. There's like, anybody can be an expert as long as they're speaking the truth. And, my training, I've done a whole lot of types of performance, but for onstage stuff in Chicago, my roots are Second City and neo-futurists, which like Second City, everybody's heard of. That's satire and character work and all that fun stuff. But the neo-futurists is this obscure branch of theater that's in Chicago, and it's all about hyper honesty. Nobody is allowed to play characters. Everything is 100% truth. And you do 30 plays in 60 minutes. It's this wild show. If you ever come to Chicago, I'll send you a link. It is like every week you are doing a bunch of these super short plays as yourself. And, you know, I will, if I'm mentoring somebody, if I'm working with a young person, I will get young people who are like, I am, you know, 21 years old. This is my first job ever. Like, what could anyone possibly learn from me? You know? And prior to this job that I have now, I was in higher education technology sales, right? So it's like, hey, you just graduated college. So I know you're in that call with that PhD and he's 50 years old and he's credentialed and he has money and he has, you know, he's esteemed by his colleagues and stuff. But if you're just like, oh yeah, I just graduated college. Oh, you do clickers? I hated those. You're an authority figure. You know, you literally just went to school. You know what students like and what they don't like. And, you know, you're never going to show them that you know more than them about their craft because you don't. But you know more about being on the other side of the classroom than they do. You know, you have very recent experience there. And, you know, with me, I have to go out here and like, I started my company, I started making content in March, you know? So if I'm going to go do a thought leadership piece, it's not me talking about something I haven't experienced. I'm like, hey, I am building my company. This is how I'm doing it. I tried this and it worked really well for me. I tried this and it blew up in my face and I wasted 14 hours of time on it. You know, I'm just telling the truth here. And if you're telling the truth, then, you know, it's probably entertaining because most people aren't telling the truth. Most people are trying to like imagine this hypothetical audience that's totally neutral and trying to find like the least offensive message you can say to them. And it's like, I don't know, is that something you've always been? So this is something that comes up in conversations on this show a lot is, how do you become comfortable just being you? Because you're like, oh yeah, I'm not a thought leader. I'm, you know, I just do this and I have my movies and stuff. And to me, you strike me as a man who has a good understanding of himself. And you know what you are and you know what you're not and you know what you like and what you don't like. Was that a difficult process for you? Was that something you learned more recently, or is that just kind of how you've always been?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's an interesting question. I think so. I think from a career perspective, it's been an interest. I've had a really interesting like road, and I spent a lot of my career in retail, in sales in retail. So I worked for Apple for 8 years, and I moved into B2B via Apple, and then kind of found this world. Now I sell SaaS. But I think what I learned in retail was a real ability to talk to people and to understand people and to get people quite quickly. So I do have a tendency, which helps me in my role, to be quite chameleonic in that I can kind of switch to the person that I'm speaking to. I kind of get their vibe quite quickly. I think that's just, I've learned that by speaking to people from aged, you know, from 12 years old who want to buy their first iPod Touch to like elderly people who are just buying a computer or like, and understanding everything in between in business and all that kind of stuff. And that's really, really helped. I think in my role, I've sort of now found, and I didn't purposely go out to do it, but I have found my way into a place that really kind of suits me. And, you know, I work for a business that I'm fortunate culturally, we're a really, really close match. I get to sell a product that I'm really passionate about. So I love that because it's not only in the space that I love, which is kind of video and personal and all that kind of stuff, but culturally we're also a really, really good fit. But I think like, if you're asking the big question about like me and my like psychology, I don't know. Like, you know, I'm 39, so I've kind of been around the houses a bit. I've got 2 kids. I've kind of had, you know, I've done all that kind of, you know, early 20s stuff. I've worked at loads of different places, and I'm generally a pretty happy, chilled out person. I'm a very, very lucky person to have had the things and experienced things in my life. So that keeps me pretty chipper, and so, you know, I don't have a lot of reason to complain about stuff. And so I guess that kind of shines through, really. So I don't think I've ever kind of thought about it in some, you know, kind of real sort of Zen way about finding myself and being comfortable with myself. But yeah, I guess you could say I am, but I don't know how I've come about that, to be honest.
It's interesting because like Yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess I find myself a lot because I'm always trying different styles. And like LinkedIn was something I always ignored. And again, I was doing sketch comedy, I was doing podcasts, I was doing improv, I was doing stand up, and I was doing a lot of SaaS sales. And I'm like, I'd never done anything with my LinkedIn, you know? So, and then I remember people at first, they were just like, people in my company were like, you're going to go explain how you sell to people. Don't you want to like not tell them that? And I'm like, no, that's fine. I'm fine. Just kind of like telling them like the tricks of the trade. And then I remember my mom was very concerned because I was starting a business and she's like, what if everyone steals your ideas? And I'm like, that would be great. Then that would mean they're all doing it my way, which is going to make it a lot easier to sell my way. But again, I had to go through this process because I tried to do the thought leader thing too. And again, I still kind of do because I do actually feel like I'm in the process of discovering things that people are trying to learn, you know, so I try to share that out. But yeah, it was like I try and experiment with a lot of things. I will throw things in there. I'll experiment with my format. You know, I always try to push the boundaries a little bit. And the more I push the boundaries, the more I kind of discover that like, oh, this thing that I'm doing is has a little bit more variety in it than I thought, you know. And the sketch comedy stuff, that was a perfect example where it was like, I started by talking about improv and then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to throw to another character and it's going to be me with glasses answering the phone. You know, and the more I did it, the more I found stuff, the more I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? I kind of do have this air where like, if you keep it 90% business, that 10% of ridiculousness, you can get away with it, you know? And in sketch comedy, and like you'll notice this if you ever watch Saturday Night Live, they put their most questionable stuff at the end of the show. And I remember anytime I was doing a big sketch show, if I had something where it's like, this is a really controversial sketch that might piss some people off, you put it near the end because you got to spend that first half of the show showing that you are someone that the audience likes, you know, and if you're going to go out on a limb, like you need that goodwill built up. And again, I play with a lot of character work, and you know, this boss character I keep coming back to, but it's just because it's you know, people keep requesting, they want to see more of the boss character. And I learned it's like, oh, okay, I can have it. He's literally screaming obscenities at me, you know, and it's like I'm bleeping it all, but he's just like a big jerk. And, you know, because I have that kind of air about me where I'm like, I'm an A student and I'm going to explain to you what the thing that I do is. When I jump to someone who's just like, shut up, Bo, go close that deal.
Yeah.
The audience likes it because it's like I'm knocking myself down a peg. And again, it's like rediscovering things that I already knew, but it's like, oh yeah, narrative structure, having an opposing force that you have to overcome. That's more interesting than just talking to the camera, you know? Mm-hmm. And okay, I'm going to make 104 vidyards in a day to set the world record. Okay, no one really cares about that. I don't think like, it's not like that is a highly contested world record. But you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to have my boss come in and I'm going to create this situation where I'm going to get fired if I don't do it. You know, it's the same thing I've been doing ever since I was a little kid, which is just like making up silly stories. But it's like, yeah, you know what? If you don't wrap this business content up in a little piece of lunch meat, the dog's not going to eat it anymore, you know? And like, the reason why I love Vidyard and the reason why I love video sellers is like, you can't control people with the room anymore. You know, before it was just like, you're in the room, you're dressed business casual, the door is closed. Maybe you have to raise your hand if you got to get up and use the bathroom, you know? None of that happens anymore. Now it's just like, if they don't like what is being said at the Zoom meeting, they're just going to start checking their email because they've got emails coming in, you know? So I don't know. Professionalism. What is that?
Yeah. I mean, I sort of feel like I've tested the boundaries of the professionalism on LinkedIn, and I see lots of, and it's interesting, and I'd be interested if people in the comments, because for me, I feel like I'm seeing a lot more people sharing less professional content, right? I've seen more memes and GIFs and sketches and that kind of stuff. But I don't know if that's because the algorithm is sending me that, and the people that I'm connected to and I interact with the most are those kinds of creators. But I do also see polls. Obviously, everyone sees polls, but that are like, is LinkedIn becoming the new Facebook? Which is like, I don't know, somebody that's just still thinks that Facebook is like the the main social network. But I'm curious because it seems like that's happening, and I've definitely, I make a lot of TikToks, or I post like every day on TikTok. You kind of have to. The algorithm needs you to feed it, so I post regularly, and some of that stuff just totally flops. And the stuff that does really well, it's all business related, and some of it's more specific to what I sell, and some of it's a bit more generic, like work from home, Zoom parody stuff. But the stuff that does really, really well, I'll be like, oh, okay, I might post that on LinkedIn, and it will like blow up like massively on LinkedIn. So it's like, oh, the audiences are not that dissimilar, and there is definitely a want by the audience that certainly, obviously, the people that follow me, and maybe a lot of people that follow me have an expectation that I'm going to post that kind of stuff and enjoy it and watch it. But some of my stuff's gone really like viral, you could say, and that's really helped. But so I think there is definitely a passion for people wanting this kind of less professional stuff. I don't think you could just post an unrelated, dance video. People would be like, I don't really understand what the purpose of this is. But if you can find that crossover between business and the message of business professionalism and something that's fun that maybe brightens someone's day for 15 seconds, there is clearly an audience for it. And I see that escalating more. There's some amazing creators out there, yourself included, Max Cohen, Will Aitken, SalesFeed, obviously put out loads of really, really interesting stuff. So there's some really, really cool people around making some really, really interesting content. I'd just be curious if other people are seeing that growth and that change happening as well.
Yeah. Commenters, throw in if anybody wants to ask some questions here. If any of you have any thoughts on Chris's note there, just about seeing more quote unquote unprofessional content. I am in this, and we've talked about this on other episodes with people like Max Cohen and Tyler Lessard and people who are all out there doing like big content stuff. Right now, the big brands are trying to look unprofessional.
Yeah.
You see these giant Fortune 500 companies and stuff. They have teams of thousands of people, doing sales and marketing and stuff. And their ads are like, I'm a guy talking to my phone. Here's my wife. It's my grandpa's birthday, and they are trying to do that. And honestly, like when I go and I'm selling my services, so I'm looking for people who are trying to do video, but wish they were doing it a little better. And sometimes I will see videos on their website and it's like, it probably looked very slick however many years ago, but it's like now it kind of tells you nothing. And I am glad. I always felt that I had a barrier to entry on content because I just didn't have good lights and I didn't have a good camera and I didn't have a boom mic and I didn't have all this stuff. And they just keep making it easier and easier to get high def video, to get on-screen captions, to green screen technology. They just make it easier and easier and easier for the average person to do it. And really the only thing that holds people back is themselves. They're like, I don't know what to say, or it's not gonna work, or people are gonna think it's stupid. Actually, we can talk about that too, but before we wrap up here, because we are going to be wrapping up soon. But I know a lot of people, they hold themselves back because they're afraid they're going to get made fun of. And I feel like social media can be very cruel. And we see all the time people going viral because they're getting canceled or because they were just a big jerk or like whatever. Have you run into a lot of nastiness as a content creator?
No, I've been pretty. Oh, certainly I've not noticed it. No, I don't think so. I've definitely seen stuff around. I feel like I've been quite lucky. I know that there's some real horror stories out there. I feel like I'm probably quite fortunate that I'm a white Western
Okay.
male.
Yeah, women
like,
get it way worse. Women
exactly 100%. Like, you know, that people just, I'm not untouchable, but I'm not the kind of target for a lot of trolls out there who just want to. I have seen some definitely some female content creators who've been like cancelled by LinkedIn and stuff. So there's some awful stuff out there. I've been fortunate that it's not something. I think if people did decide to, it doesn't really faze me. I've had a few random comments on TikTok about a few posts that I've made, and I just sort of lean into it, to be honest, because if anyone knows anything about TikTok, like if you drive comments, that actually creates content, because you can create videos off the back of people's comments and stuff. So it actually is helpful, but nothing too kind of, you know, slanderous or horrific. But if I did, I think I would just ignore it. But yeah, there's definitely some horrible stuff out there.
Yeah, see, I find much more likely than getting bullied is no one will notice. You know, that's actually, yeah, we were talking about 15 minutes of fame. Like, the world changed so quickly. It's like, it's hard to forget sometimes. Like, anytime you want to go on stage and have the entire world as your audience, you can do it just from your home. And there is a greater than 0% chance that maybe that'll be the video that goes viral and gets millions of people everywhere seeing it. But most of the time, people aren't even going to notice. You know, yeah. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. All my high school theater teachers and speech teachers, not a single one of them has ever liked my page or anything I've ever posted online. You know, you got to do it a lot before you start getting into it and you start finding your audience and stuff. So I always try to tell people, like, do what you like, do what you would laugh at, do what you would find is interesting. And if someone doesn't like it, they're probably just going to watch it for 3 seconds and keep scrolling. But if you make enough of it, you'll find that person who's compelled by it. And, you know, I'm so thankful you were able to join us here today. Everybody, Chris Van Prague, go check him out on it's VP. What is that? What is your?
My TikTok is a VP of sales.
Okay, I'm gonna throw this in here real quick. So
yeah, I would say, as a parting shot to anyone who's thinking of creating content and putting stuff out there, like, to your point at the end there, like, just put it out there. Like, it is a pattern interrupt if you're just recording yourself, or you're, you know, putting something different that is not. I've just reposting company blogs. Just, the algorithm doesn't want you to do it. Your audience doesn't want you to do it. Find a more interesting way of sharing that message, and put yourself out there. And as you said, most posts on LinkedIn, if they're unpopular, they have a shelf life of like a day. If they're popular, they have a shelf life of like a week. And that's it. So your most popular posts, you know, you'll get a week of like notifications and it's some cool stuff, and maybe open up some conversations. Your least popular stuff will disappear. And you just move on to the next one. You just try something different. So, you know, I'd encourage anyone just to, you know, just test the waters, see what's out there, and don't be. I've had people that have put stuff out and been disappointed because they've got like 50 views, and that because we live in this world of like things going viral. But if you think about 50 views and you had 50 people in a room listening to your message, that's a significant amount of people. You know, it's an amazing number of people. So, you know, don't underestimate what that means, and those people, and the people that picked up that stuff. So just get your message out there, you know, spread the joy, share what you're thinking about, and people will engage with you and see what happens from there.
Love it. Want to build an audience of 1 million? Do one by one. Yeah. That's how I'm trying to do it. Everybody, thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of LinkedIn Live. This has been Chris Sells His Soul. I will be releasing this interview eventually in podcast form for our friends who want to get it in audio. I want to send one more thank you to my guest, Chris Van Prague, Vidyard. I almost went the entire video without screwing it up. Thanks so much to have you, man. Hope you had a great time.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's been great. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, everybody.